obviously, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Jordan, Clemson just wrapped up their final scrimmage of fall camp. Their second preseason game, if you will, is in the books. It seems that we got out of it unscathed of sorts, unless some reports come out in the coming days. But we are in a good place as far as health goes. But we heard from Coach Dabo Swinney. He was excited about the energy around the second scrimmage. He was excited about some of the players. So just kind of your thoughts on, some of his comments. And we didn't get a chance to talk about, the first scrimmage really. So we can dive into really both scrimmages and kind of dive deep into scrimmage 1 and scrimmage 2, because we have not talked to our audience since the first scrimmage. So your thoughts of fall camp so far, how the team has performed in the scrimmages, and where this Clemson team is as of right now in fall camp as we ramp up to this week 1 massive matchup against LSU in Death Valley, night game. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the biggest thing that to take away from the two scrimmages has been, I think, Dabo in particular, he seems to be pretty satisfied with where, both sides of the ball are. Obviously you're going to have your complaints. You're going to have your things that that they need to improve on. I mean, that's the point of fall camp. But just gathering what I have, you've seen flashes on both sides of the ball from the players you wanted to see. You've seen a massive development in spots that you felt like you needed to see. And I think that's kind of been the overarching takeaway, is that they feel like they have a pretty complete roster right now. Now, whether or not that presents itself on the field, that's ultimately why we play the games. But as it stands now, things seem to be in pretty good shape. The only comment I really didn't care for was the punter comment today. But we can talk about that. But I think beyond that, things seem to be in a really good place. You're still in a good place health-wise. We'll talk about a couple of guys that are banged up, but nobody that's going to be real long-term right now as it stands. So I think all of that is. I think if you're a Clemson fan, that's about all you can ask for heading in as we get closer to that opener.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And we'll get into punter a little bit later, but I'm going to save that until a little bit later. Let's get into the big hogs up front. I want to kick this conversation off with the offensive line. We heard from a ton of the offensive line coming out of scrimmage 1, heading into scrimmage 2. You heard from most of the guys, and I really want to focus in on that offensive line. Obviously, Walker Parks went down in scrimmage 1. If you have not heard that already, Walker Parks kind of seems like it's some sort of ankle injury. They're not really saying what it is. Dabo Swinney's comments today were, I guess, reassuring, saying that he'll be fine. I don't know if that means he'll be fine by week 1 LSU or if he'll be fine. It's just not going to be a long-term thing. He'll be back. So it's good to hear that it's not this season-ending injury for him, because, again, he's one of those super seniors along the offensive line and on this team that this is his last opportunity to play college football. But it seems that we are getting some really quality depth set at the offensive line. Who's going to run out there 1 to 5? We'll figure that out. But it seems that the offensive line is progressing in a big way under the tutelage of Matt Luke. So your thoughts about hearing the interviews from the offensive line, where they stand at this point in time in fall camp, and kind of Dabo Swinney's comments about them.
Yeah, it seems that they're in a really good spot in a lot of places. I mean, obviously, health-wise, you're still pretty good. You mentioned Walker Parks, who actually was repping. He's repped some at center this fall. He's repped at right guard too. It seems to be a lower leg injury. They don't really know. They weren't really specific, but Dabo seemed to be adamant that he'll be back for LSU. So we'll, that's when you feel like you can chalk up and just say, that's just, one of the bumps and bruises you expect in fall camp. So I guess that's good, especially to hear for a guy that throughout his career has had multiple injuries that have kept him out or limited him longer term. So hopefully he rests up. He's played over 2,500 snaps in his career. That's pretty ridiculous. I don't know where that is in the Clemson record books, but he's got to be up there.
Yeah.
So I think it says a lot about how just steady he's been throughout his career despite the injuries. And you just hope to see him back, because you'll definitely need him in that opener, and just for this season. He's one of your leaders. He's 50 years old now, so you gotta make sure you have a guy like him in the room. But the offensive line in general, they feel like they're in a really good spot. They built up some quality depth. I really like what they have on the interior. I feel like they have quite a few guys that can step in and play at a high level if need be. And that was kind of the I think that was kind of the vibe I got out of the first two scrimmages, or out of the two scrimmages. So I think that's good. Listening to them, they seem to be extremely confident and where they are. Matt Luke seems to be in a good place with that group. So you just gotta hope you continue to stay healthy. Those guys continue to develop. They're going up against a really, really talented defensive front. So anytime you have that level of competition, it's better to have it than to not. I think this group is in the best place it's been in a long time, and I'm excited to see how they look when they run out there against LSU.
Yeah, absolutely, man. We heard from guys like Harris Sewell and Colin Sadler and Blake Miller and all the guys along the offensive line, Ryan Lithicum. So you feel like that group is in a really good place. I like Dabo's comments about both lines of scrimmage, really, and talking about the offensive line, saying that they won some matchups and the defensive line won some matchups, and that's really what you want to hear out of your fall camp, right? Like, you don't want to hear this one-sided, defensive line is dominating, offensive line is dominating. You don't really want to hear that, because that means that quite possibly the other side of the coin on that is not up to par. And the reports that we've heard out of fall camp so far is that both lines of scrimmages are winning at different points in times within fall camp. And that's definitely an encouraging thing. Walker Parks, him being injured, that would be a significant loss to the offensive line. Let's not sugarcoat that at all, but you do have guys that can step in. Harris Sewell can step in there. Colin Sadler can step in there. So you have guys that have repped at multiple positions that could step in there. Elijah Thurman is another one that was performing really well last season until he broke his ankle late in the season. He's back fully healthy. Dabo has great comments about him. So it's just it's really encouraging along the offensive line when you have multiple guys that can play, quote unquote, winning football for you. And not only that, they are well versed at multiple positions. So they're very versatile on the offensive line, and that's going to bode well for you this season because we know injuries happen, rolled ankles happen, sore knees happen, right? Sprained knees happen. Like all these things are going to happen throughout the season, and having that functional depth the guys that can step in and play winning football, and not only that, but play multiple positions along the offensive line is going to bode really well for you. Ryan Lithicum, I watched his interview. His interview really struck me. That guy has come a long way since he's been at Clemson. He was a guy that we didn't really know at one point in time in his career if he was going to, take that next step and really become the player that we thought he could. But he is really taken that role from last season and looks like that he's taken a giant leap. He mentioned in his interview that he was down 3% body fat. He feels much better. He feels like he's in the best shape that he's ever been since he's at Clemson. His chemistry with Cade and with the rest of the line, just barking out orders and making sure that they're on the same page and that they know their assignments. It gives you a really good feeling heading into the season when you have a center that has that kind of chemistry with not only his offensive lineman, but also his quarterback.
Yeah, and now you couple that, because before, when he stepped into the role, he had the tenure, he'd been in the program a while. If you guys don't remember, he was a class of 2021 kid. He went to this, he was a former teammate of Brian Brzee. A lot of a big reason why he ended up coming to Clemson was because Clemson had Brian Brzee. And he was just kind of a body for a while there. And we weren't really sure, like you said, we weren't really sure if he was ever going to be able to step in and be that guy at center. That's what he was recruited to be. That's what he had projected to be out of high school. And but last season that was kind of a question for us. We were like, okay, is he going to be able to be that level of player? And is he going to, or are we going to have to find somebody else? Because is he going to be able to snap it? Is he just going to be able to play the position at a high level? Is he going to have that camaraderie, that chemistry with Cade and the rest of the line? And I think he surprised a lot of us in how he played last year. And now that he has true game experience in his 5th year, it's time to see a fully complete football player. So excited to see how he looks out there. I think you got to feel good about where things are with him. My question is, I guess we haven't really done a full position preview on the offensive line as far as who we think is running out there on LSU. I feel like now is a good time. Might as well, now that we're 2 scrimmages in. Who do you think the 5 guys are going to be left or right? Because I think there's a clear pecking order at this point.
I believe so as well. So if I'm going to pick, I'll pick my 5 first. Obviously, it's going to be Tristan Lay over at left tackle, and then I think it'd be Colin Sadler at left guard, Ryan Lithicum at center, if healthy, Walker Parks at right guard, and then obviously Blake Miller at right guard. Thank you. So that would be my initial starting 5. If Walker Parks is healthy, I think that's the first 5 guys that run out there for Clemson, snap one of the LSU game.
Yeah, that's the exact 5 I have. That's the 5 that have played the most together from what I've gathered in spring. That's been the ones I think, and I think you have some guys behind them that can certainly start and give you starting caliber snaps. Talked about Harris Sewell. I think he can play at either guard spot. He can step in at center. Elijah Thurman his rehab has gone extremely well. He's full go. He's been everything they wanted him to be. And so I think you have. I think those 7 are guys that I think they truly consider like starters. And then a couple of other names that have kind of stepped in and have gotten buzz throughout camp. Of course, Mason Wade is a guy that they are extremely high on. I think he could potentially be a factor in the 2 deep. If a guy goes down, obviously Braden Jacobs is a guy that might. Hey, if you get into a pinch, I think he's a guy that they feel like they could throw out there if need be. But I think you're in a really good spot depth-wise, and even some of the guys that we don't talk about a ton, like Dietrich Pennington got praised last week, and you still got some of the younger guys, the Ronan O'Connells. Watson Young is coming back from ACL, so you have a lot of quality depth. That I didn't even mention the other freshmen. We talked about Gavin Blanchard last week. I think this is offensive line room is in the best shape from a talent perspective, depth perspective, and playable quality perspective that we've seen in quite some time. But I think, but like you said, I think those are the 5 that run out there. I think you feel good generally with that group. I think that they can play winning football. I think they can potentially be, with another year together, they could be a championship level unit. But we got to see it, and they certainly, as good as of a jump as they made last year in year 1 of the Matt Luke experience, they still have, another step I think they need to take. Obviously, run blocking towards the end of the year. Part of that was just the running back depth that didn't help, but you got to open, you still got to open up holes, and you just weren't getting the push at the end of the season that you were at the beginning / middle of the year. So especially with you when you have questions at running back. You have unknowns at running back. It's all the more important that you have that ability to make defenses respect your run game, respect the physicality you have up front, that where you feel good that no matter who you have back there in the backfield, whether it be Adam Randall, whether it be David Eziamume, whether it be Jay Haynes coming back from injury, whether it be Gideon Davidson, you have guys, whether it be Keith Adams, like you feel comfortable that they all will be able to be productive behind that offensive line.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The offensive line is definitely looking like a bright spot heading into 2025. But you mentioned a group there that obviously we need to talk about after 2 full scrimmages, and that's that running back room. A room that is a big question mark heading into fall camp. Obviously, the move of Adam Randall from receiver to running back, we did that right before the playoff game against Texas. He popped one big run against Texas, but otherwise was pretty unproductive in that game. Again, he only had about a week to prepare at the running back position. Running back has obviously been a big question mark this offseason for Clemson. Phil Maffa heads to the NFL the year before. You got guys leaving for the NFL, and you got kind of a question mark. You don't have any proven depth at the running back position. If you look back a year ago, Phil Maffa was your guy the entire season. He got banged up. He had a bum shoulder. He couldn't go, and they kept trotting him out there towards the end of the season with no avail. It was a bad situation. We basically had no running game at the back end of Clemson's season, and it showed. It put a lot of pressure on Cade Klubnik. It put a lot of pressure on them wide receivers, and that's something that's got to be corrected coming into 2025 if you really hope to achieve some of the things that the media and the fans and everybody else thinks that you can achieve in 2025. You have to have, at a minimum, a serviceable running game. So let's talk a little bit about that running back room. You mentioned the depth chart there. Adam Randall obviously being the guy that we suspect will be RB1 coming into week 1 against LSU. Where do you think that running back room really stands right now? And what do you think that pecking order is? And how much has Adam Randall progressed in one offseason at the running back position? Can he truly be Clemson's RB1 heading into 2025?
Yeah, that's the question. The staff seems to think so, and I do think the buzz out of camp has been extremely positive. Today in the scrimmage, he had Adam Randall had I think he had a 50-yard run or 60-yard run. So I think they feel really confident about where he is, and that doesn't mean that doesn't mean anything ultimately when they step out there on the field. But you're hearing all the things that you want to hear. Now the comparisons that I've seen fans throw out there, they've gotten a little crazy. I do think you potentially have something in Adam Randall at running back, but I'm not going to be going out here calling him the next Derrick Henry, and he's about to. We're not doing all that. I think that's insane to put on any running back, let alone a guy who just moved to the position after playing wide receiver for 3 seasons. I think he offers a lot because of his body type, his skill set, his experience at receiver. It gives him a unique skill set at the running back position that and athletic profile at the running back position that I think will be tough for defenses. But I'm stopping short of calling him things like that. But I do think it's a good move for him. And the thing that stuck out to me when Dabo was talking about him was that he said they had just gotten to a point where they were like, the best things that Adam Randall did were after he had the ball in his hands. And so they were like, let's just move him to running back so we can just get him the ball. I do think that through the spring and through the fall or fall camp, you've seen that they feel really, really good about that decision. So you still can't have one running back. We saw how that worked out last year. You need to have guys that you can trust, especially if Clemson is going to play a 14, 15, 16 game season and be a true playoff national championship contender. You got to have backs. You got to have multiple backs that can play at a high level. So the staff was really, really high on David Eziamume. He's done. They think he's made a tremendous leap. I think you'll see a lot more of him this year, and that's exciting. If you can get Jay Haynes back within the first maybe couple weeks of the season, I mean, that would be great. And obviously, you guys know how I feel about Gideon Davidson and what I think he can be. But you need to have that quality of depth. You need to have multiple guys that you feel like you can throw out there, even if you have a number one back, because we saw what Phil Maffa looked like towards the end of the season when his shoulder was like basically falling off his body. All of a sudden, Clemson couldn't run the football, put a lot more pressure on Cade Klubnik, a lot more stress on him and those receivers to make plays. And as good as they are, it's much easier for everybody if you can run the football. So please run the football.
Yeah, absolutely. We need a solid running game, and you would think behind this offensive line you're going to be able to have that. Adam Randall, returns out of fall camp are all positive, right? You're hearing the right things, and you just hope it comes to fruition. But like you mentioned, Jordan, that pecking order behind him is going to become increasingly important as this season goes on. We saw having a single running back last year did not work out. So can't have that again, whether it's going to be Easy E, whether it's going to be Jarvis Green, whether it's going to be not Jarvis Green. He's hurt now. Sorry. But whether it's going to be whoever within that pecking order, you got to have guys that are going to step up in a big way and be able to make quality snaps for you. Gideon Davison, Jay Haynes coming off an injury. Hopefully he gets back soon. I think he could be a really big addition if he can get truly healthy and be a full go. I know he's been injured and all that kind of stuff, but he's a big time player. He's a big game player. He's a guy that can break things wide open for you. So I'm excited to see how that pecking order kind of happens in week one. I'm excited to see how the snaps are divvied up in week one. And that's going to be a question mark that will not be answered until we are well into the season about how that running back room truly looks. You can have all the positive and the glowing reports you want out of fall camp, but at the end of the day, it does not matter until you put it on the field against a high-level opponent, and Clemson will get that opportunity week one against LSU.